hear it more easily. Very cool. Let's see. Is anybody watching right now? Not exactly, but I'm just gonna say this at the onset. I'm really happy to have you on this Tuesday's show aesthetic. You're kind of a regular, and I kind of wanted it to be a regular mic, our regulars showcase, especially because I want this next show to be like a fundraiser for my hometown, Houston, which got hit pretty hard by the winter storm Uri. So
Yeah,
um,
y'all are going through a hard time right now.
yeah, it's rough. It's rough. I'm actually not in Texas, but it's yeah. I mean, it definitely worries me. So, anyways, I guess my first question is, how are you? What's good?
I am good. I have been busy. I finally took a day off work.
What
So
is it
I
that you
am,
do? You're a software engineer, right?
yeah, software developer slash product manager. So
Okay.
the
Okay.
company I'm at lets me as much as I can. So development is like I do it. I know how to do it. I'm reasonable at it. But any
Mhm.
excuse I can find to not be writing code. So
I understand. So you don't
so
like writing code. You're not a code monkey.
not anymore. Like I was. I've been that. I but now any excuse I can find to like help other people and like manage stuff or automate stuff or be in meetings that I'm helping people, like
Yeah,
I'll
see things
take
from
that.
kind of a bird's eye view.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that. I mean, my dad actually, he works in IT, and he's like, yeah, if I ever have to write a line of code, I know I'm going too deep. Like this, I have to be a lot bigger about everything. He's an interesting guy, but you're also an interesting guy, and this is about you.
No, no, by all means, let's make this a
It's for my
a
father.
PR thing for your father. Yeah.
Yeah, Henry Akinoye is actually a pretty stand-up guy. So
Wait, your dad's last name is Akinoye
yeah, it
and
is.
your last name is Vasquez? How'd that happen?
Well, I mean, my mom raised me, so they
Mm.
were never married, and so I took my mother's last name. Also, my full name is Zivan Raulo Ladale Vasquez, so if it was Zivan Raulo Ladale Akinoye,
Mm.
I think I
Is
would just
like,
burst into Scrabble
yeah.
tiles and
Is Vasquez the correct way of saying that? Like people usually anglicize it to Vasquez.
people usually do, and I mean, people in my family will kind of alternate between Vasquez and Vasquez, but it is Vasquez.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
or Basquez technically, since it's from the Basque region and V's are B's. That's neither here nor there. That doesn't mean anything to anybody. That's super unimportant and very uninteresting. To
That's
those
the
of you
theme of
guys,
this interview.
yeah, exactly. I just want to open up the kind of comment section. I'm kind of alternating between here and the
Mhm.
displaced live thing. So if you guys have any questions for myself or Ashwyn, mostly direct them towards Ashwyn if you can, or for the both of us. Slap those bad boys in the. Oh god, I never thought I would do this. I feel
Put
like
it in the chat and
put
don't
it in the
forget to
chat.
like, share, and subscribe.
Fucking ring that bell, hit subscribe, and please join my Patreon. I'm so poor. I am so fucking poor.
Doing a reaction video to each other's personalities.
Oh my god. Yeah, it's
That is what an interview is. Just like,
yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, it's just a live yeah, I mean it's just a live reaction where both people are facing each other. Um
yes.
I guess that's what conversations are. I don't know if
Hmm.
it's like, wow, you're actually responding to the person that's there. Uh but anyways, you're in Canada,
Yeah.
Ontario?
Yes, I live
Okay.
about an hour south of Toronto.
Okay, cool. All right. So then you're sitting pretty at it is 1:30 for you, right?
Time wise, yes.
Yeah. I don't know why I'm asking these like very mundane questions.
Wait,
Uh
is it? I don't know. Yeah, no, definitely not. It's 4:30. I'm Eastern time.
wait, what? Oh, okay. So Toronto. Oh, I'm thinking of Vancouver. Okay.
Yeah, that's west. This is east.
Yes.
I
Yes. You're
mean, west, east, not. You know what I mean.
yeah, I gotcha. I gotcha. I figured the fingers were just more for show than anything.
Yes.
Um but let's see. What did I ask you last time that I don't want to. Well, I guess what's some stuff you've been thinking about? Stuff that you've kind of. I mean, I feel like for me personally, I often have like pockets of my comedy where it's like this week is just about fucking, I don't know, Greek mythology. Like that's all I'm writing about.
Mm,
That's all I'm talking about. That's all I'm thinking about.
right.
So I'm kind of interested
Well,
in.
this last week or a little bit kind of has been about punchlines for me
Mm,
because I realized that I write things that are funny and then I whittle them down to like make them funnier. But like I watched a couple interviews with people that basically with comedians that are like 10, 15 years in, and they're like, yeah, the first part of the journey of being funny is like 3 years in, you actually dial into the concept of a punchline. Now, like you throw the word around, but you never really like the concept of what like a punchline is. Like you just can't like it's learned behavior.
that's
Uh,
true. That is
so
true.
I have been kind of and they most of them basically said you never like write it and go oh like you never think I'm gonna write a punchline and write it like you usually write it and go oh that's a punchline
Yeah. Yes.
and that's the journey of like 3.5 years and you'll end up writing something and you're like oh that's definitely a punchline and that I think I still have no good idea of how to get there
Hmm.
but I've written a couple by accident is
So you've
where I'm at.
discovered rubber a couple of times. You
Yeah,
have
like
penicillin.
yeah, like you were at an open mic where I tried something that didn't have a punchline, and then it turned into something that did have a punchline. So it was like I heard the silence and I was like, I know this needs something.
Hmm.
And it was when I said I hate hypocrites, but I love myself,
Yeah,
right?
I remember
And
that was your opener. Yeah.
yeah, and it like it's definitely clever. Like I enjoy the idea of it, right? Um, yeah, exactly. But then I had to stop and like explain it, and the explanation was funny because the joke is kind of like that, where it's like, oh, all right, like you twisted something into yourself, and then
Hmm.
like you get it, and then you laugh. But there wasn't a like a punchline, so to speak, right? So
Hmm.
eventually, it morphed into I hate hypocrites, so I should hate myself, but I'm a hypocrite.
That's there it is. That's good.
So I like myself just fine.
That's good. That's even better.
Right?
Yeah.
Uh, and then it kind of morphed into people come up to me and they say you're a hypocrite. I'm like I know it's a self-care habit, and then you kind of it kind
That's
of
good.
morphed from there and like led into something else I was thinking about. But there's a difference there is like I think like this will probably evolve, but I think like for me right now the punchline is the difference between like setup and silence and like setup and explanation.
Yes. Yeah. That's a well.
Like every once in a while, I will have jokes where I'll give you just the setup
Hmm.
and expect you to laugh, right? And eventually, like every once in a while, there are jokes that work
Hmm.
that way. But those jokes are like they make people laugh because I think they're cheeky because they're like, I'm not gonna tell you, but it's simple enough that you know what I'm getting at.
You figure it out. Yeah.
Right? It's like when you're with your best friend that you've known for 10 years and they say something stupid and you're like, I didn't say anything.
Hmm. Yeah.
Right? And they're
Saw you.
like, yeah, but you said everything.
Yeah. You say
Right?
yeah.
Yeah. So that's the kind of like I still have those,
Hmm.
but that can't be all of the sets, right? Can't be all of the jokes. So you still have to learn. And so I'm not like I think now I'm going to have to like go write out like a Carlin special or a Mulaney special and separate the setups and punchlines because like now I'm like oh fuck I need to learn what that is.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah. If you ever are looking for transcripts, I don't know if you've ever heard it. It's stands from the loft, or it's got all of these. Gosh, something from the loft. From the loft. I mean, it comes up if you look up Mulaney transcript. But yeah, I think that's a really good idea, especially kind of going through and kind of analyzing the structure, analyzing the structure, analyzing the
yeah,
structure.
and I
Scraps from the
also
loft.
realized I love callbacks, right?
Mm,
I love the concept of callbacks, but I've always found it really hard to write callbacks, right?
yes.
And but then yesterday I wrote three,
Wow. Okay.
and the difference was The problem was, in order to have a callback, you have to call back to a punchline, and I don't have punchlines.
Yeah, yeah, you're calling back to empty air.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like there's like you can't call back to a concept, right?
yeah,
Like you know what like
yeah.
you
Remember
can,
when I
but
was
you
talking
need
about
the
cats earlier?
yeah,
You know.
you need the words, right?
Yes, yes.
And so after I wrote like 4 or 5 punchlines, which like by accident in one set, like eventually I wrote a callback and I was like, oh, I could call back to that punchline. And I was like, oh fuck, I was missing the punchline. That's why I haven't been able to write the callback.
That's almost, I mean, that's almost kind of, I like that as a strategy to like get you to write punchlines is you try to write callbacks. And if you can't do it, that's a sign you need more punchlines or you need a
Right.
punchline.
Like you need something. Yeah.
That's a,
Like,
yeah, that's a good strategy.
and I've always, I don't know, like I've always been very, you know how like rebellious without a cause, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like not just personality wise, like even with like comedy, it's like most comedians go, I like a lot of comedians are like, I'm here because I hate convention. I like complaining about the way things are,
Yeah.
right? And to take that kind of person and tell them that even comedy and being funny has structure, right?
Yeah.
Like jokes have structure. Like it's such a like it's so easy to rebel. It's so hard not to rebel against that because you're like, no, I'm here because I hate structure. You're telling
Yeah.
me
It's like,
I
sorry,
have to
bud.
incorporate it into
It's still here.
this too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, but like eventually you start having a little bit of fun with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that whole joke that like the hypocrite thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
After the self-care habit, I started like thinking about how to actually write like proper endings. So the like I said, you know, so everybody has their fake self-care habit. Like some people have like Netflix 14 hours a day, you know, and I have being a feminist and being guilty of the occasional mansplaining. Like that kind of hypocrisy is my self-care habit. And
Mm-hmm.
they just went, you know, because I was talking to I think my best friend, and I asked her what exactly is the difference between mansplaining and explaining,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this is actually a story I got from comics. I'm not gonna dwell on punchlines here because then I'm just telling jokes on the pod like an interview, and that's stupid. But so I'll give you the actual story, right? It didn't come from my best friend. It came from like comics on a show that
Mm-hmm.
were explaining this to me, right?
Oh,
And they
yeah,
went,
I was there too. Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, and they said something like, well, when you're mansplaining, it starts with well actually, and
That, yeah.
and I was like, well, how would you actually say that thing? And
That's a good line. That's a good line right there. Yeah.
yeah, and they said, well, if you're not mansplaining, you will go. It might interest you to know that, and like
It
in
might
my
interest you to know
it's just,
that.
but like I don't think it's that easy to say these words mean this thing in this dictionary of communication,
Yeah.
right? Like I think the central element to the mansplaining part of the sentence is the condescension towards women,
Yes, that's the
right?
operative. Yeah.
Right? Like that would be the operative thing, not the like well actually thing. So you
Yeah.
can kind of make fun of the well actually thing,
Yeah.
right? So from that it kind of became, well, I asked my best friend, how do you differentiate? She said, well, if you're mansplaining, you say, well, actually, and if you're not, you say something else. And I said, well, actually, that
That's
doesn't
good.
really work, right?
Yeah.
So now you get the punchline. You get now, well, actually becomes the punchline, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
then the like story comes in. Well, I just grew up in a family of 14 people. You speak quickly or you don't speak,
Fair
right?
enough.
So if I walk into a room of 14 family members and go, it might interest you to know I am now alone in that room,
Yeah.
right? I'm not sexist. I'm an immigrant. Like there's a difference.
I like it.
So, but and then like this is not really a joke, but I was thinking about it later. Is like when somebody really dislikes you, right? You kind of want to try to find reasons for why they dislike you, and you will never like. And this is just the human condition: is you're never gonna think the reason they dislike you is you,
Yeah. No.
right? You're always going to be like, oh, it's something else. So it is very possible for me to say something to someone and be like, no, what you just said is not correct. And instead of going, oh, they're saying this because they think the thing is not correct, they're going, no, they're saying this because they hate all women. And I'm like, that's a much broader
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
conclusion that I don't hate women, just what you said. Like
Yeah.
you have said something incredibly stupid. And I'm not gonna pretend that it's about you being a woman. It's about you being a douchebag. Like
Yeah.
that's what's happening.
That makes a
So,
lot of sense.
but obviously that's not comedy. That's just me telling you a story,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
The punchline as well, actually.
Hmm.
And then later, like much later, like I had a like I think you heard like me talk about like people giving feedback,
Yes. Yes, I remember
right?
that.
And so I kind of merge all of them together. You'll see. This is basically a teaser for your show. I'm going to do this 5 minutes on your show, right? So
Sick.
so eventually, I say, well, audiences like to give feedback, but sometimes they think I'm going to give feedback, but what happens is I'm going to make a speech,
Mm.
and it's very weird because the whole point was for me to have attention. You didn't develop the talent. You get on stage, you do 5 minutes, right? You make your own speech. Why you harming in on my time? So, but you can't. But they go, I like you. They go, I disagree with that joke, and you just
Mhm.
go, I disagree with your disagreement of my joke, and and they're like, well, you can't disagree with something that's not an opinion. You're just like, oh, do you also have a self-care habit? Like, right. But it's just like, when was the last time you walked into a gallery and you went, I disagree with this painting.
Never.
I
I've
hate
never.
this painting, and therefore we should shut down this gallery. Like,
Yeah.
so, but so with all of that context, right? 5 minutes later, I make a different joke, and I go, I made that joke, and a woman in the audience said, I disagree with that joke,
Hmm.
and I said, well, actually, right? So
Full
like
turn. Full
callbacks
turn.
really are like a setup, like a long time later punchline, kind of,
Yeah. Yes,
right? Like
exactly.
every once in a while you go, oh, I've used that joke before, I can reuse it here. But a lot of times you're just like, oh, this is just a very long drawn out joke.
Hmm. That's a good point. That's a very good point. And I think it's interesting that you say that because I am sort of making my foray into more long form bits. I kind of worked on having a tight five in the last couple of months. And then
Hmm.
now I'm trying to think of like, okay, 5 minute bits, like 5 minutes on something. And it has sort of activated the impetus to have as many callbacks as possible, an arc structure, things that I had sort of thought about in the context of smaller jokes, but not really in any sort of like set long, um,
Yeah. And it's
paradigm.
like, sorry, yeah, I think a lot of what I'm learning is like I like chaos, right? But and I do kind of hate structure.
Hmm.
But the idea of art is to give chaos structure so somebody else can understand what you think you understand.
That's
Like
good. Yeah.
like the whole point is like I don't think in ABC. I think like AZEF. Like I go twists and turns and from here to there, and I don't know what connections I make. But the idea is at the end to like introduce some structure so that somebody else can go, oh, A to B.
Hmm.
I understand this, right? I do the work, you do the understanding. Like
You
that's
chew the food, they digest.
yeah, I cook, they eat.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, that is what humans do. That is, yeah. Thank you, Ashwin. I forgot for a minute that we were not birds. It's easy to forget. It's like, oh yeah, you know
Yeah.
how like when you chew shit for people and then you just into their mouth? Yeah. If only there was a way to prepare food for people. Some sort of, yeah.
Yeah. I love
Gosh.
I love how you were just like, here's an analogy, and I'm like, here's a much better analogy.
Yeah. 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 I mean, the game goes back and forth. We're gonna be playing this.
Yeah.
We're gonna be duking it out on syllogisms for the next.
Why not? I think our brains are kind of the same that way.
That is true. I mean, I think we're both very much wired similarly and kind of wired for comedy similarly. Because I've met people who are like me, but their comedy is different. Like that area of sort of interconnectivity is
Hmm.
just put together differently. even though on the whole they're the same, background as me, study the same stuff, do the same stuff. Um,
Right.
so yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Do you have? I mean, some people are really really strict with themselves, like Ashley Gutermuth, who I hope we can have on this thing um, pretty soon. She's like a machine. Like she has a set time that she, not performs. What's the word? Writes in the morning. She exercise. She runs every day. She picks up trash. She's got like this like. You watch any of her stuff, and she's just like, I mean, she's really metronomic. And so are you like that? Like, do you have kind of a like this is writing time, this is exercise, do.
No. Uh,
That's for
I'm not
nerds.
like that. No, it's not that. I think I have my. I work out regularly. I just don't know exactly when or what day.
I see.
So
Um,
for me right now, it's about when I can get a reservation because my gym just opened up and they're doing 10 people at a time, 1 hour at a time. You have to
mhm.
do it reservation only. They open reservations for like 2 days later at 6 p.m. and it's all booked within like 5 minutes. So it's all about like what time I can actually go in, right?
So
And
you
for
have to be
me,
timely.
yeah, but it's not my schedule. I'm not.
I see.
It's right. When it is my schedule, I like my thing is I work out 3 times a week, usually once every 2 or 3 days,
I see.
and for about an hour. If I'm at home, because I get bored at home if I'm working out. If I'm at the gym, I'll go an hour and a half.
Hmm.
But uh, the structure is in the habit, not in the timing.
I see. So in the doing there is structure, but not when the doing is their structure.
Yeah, and I've been more anal about it. Like when I started working out, I started trying to create the habit. At that time it was more about let's try to build the habit. So even if I didn't have the energy to work out, I remember I would go sit at the gym for a half hour just to make sure I was trying to build the habit of going,
Hmm.
right? And you would go and like there was one day where I was like, well, I'm here, I'm tired, but I might as well try something. And you end up like doing a little bit of your workout, but the thing is you never do a little bit of your workout. You do like a quarter and you're like, well, I might as well do the rest now I'm here.
No, I
uh,
think that's where you and I differ. I definitely I definitely stop
I
at a
see.
quarter.
And it's not like I don't like give up. Like I quit. Like I don't finish the whole thing, but I like don't finish the whole thing when I can see that I can quit, like, and not say that I quit in the middle. Like if I had like seven
I
different
see.
exercises, but like I never quit, but on the third set of an exercise with 5 sets, I'll finish the
I
five
see.
sets and then I'll go, now I can like, I'll be too tired tomorrow to work out if I do more. So I'll go home now.
That makes a lot of sense. That's what I like about running is that it's not discrete, it's pretty continuous. So and I
Mm,
it's like I can just and then I can stop whenever I want. And then that's
yeah.
that's that. There's not like a block that I have to
Yeah.
finish or anything.
But the thing is, like, working out is the one thing in my life where I am the most disciplined, right?
Ah, I see. Does it
Which
do you
means
feel
you
like it
can
spills over though?
a little, but you can imagine how chaotic I am at everything else if this is the amount of structure I'm comfortable with having in the most structured thing I do,
Fair
right?
enough. Oh, 1 second. Savion asks, where are your clothes at? I guess did you just finish working out?
No, I wear no. Ask Savion, where's your personality at?
Oof. Damn. And I don't think it nobody's like we went from 4 to 0 right as you said that. God damn it. Oh man. Oh
There's a
well.
little bit of a delay, so I'm guessing they didn't hear my awesome burn, but
Oh, it'll just go into the ether. Um, but I was gonna ask, so yeah, so for writing, there's probably even less structure, and I think it's interesting. Like for me, I definitely have that same mentality of like, okay, well, let me just be in the room with my journal, and then at some point I will say, might as well, and then there goes an hour or 2 hours. Um, but I've recently started being even more specific about exactly the type of writing that I do. This is me punching stuff up. This is me just free writing, getting as many ideas on the page as possible. This is me just trying to write as
Mm,
many one-liners as possible. Like it's a very um, kind of mechanistic process that I'm sort of
right.
honing in on.
Yeah, I think, well, the most structured thing I do right now, other than working out, is probably uh, either eating or open mics every night.
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
uh, the thing with open mics is I now actually am in the habit of doing at least 3 or 4 every night.
Hmm.
Just and it didn't start out that way. I like it kind of just happened.
Yes.
So I can't take credit for like intentionally building that habit. The only intentional habit I've ever built was working out,
Mm.
and
Hmm.
uh, everything. And at the time, it was like a source of like great pride to me because everything else I've had that I'm good at, right? Like playing music or like I guess some point in my life comedy, but not right now. Um,
Ah, well,
like
I disagree.
they've all been passed down by somebody else convincing me or pushing me to do that thing.
Mm.
Like music started because I had like once or twice a week music classes that my parents told me to do, right?
Oh, okay.
And like I play tennis like quite well. I mean, but in high school competitively. But again, it's because my parents put me in it, and I just went and practiced like 3 hours a day because I was supposed to, right?
Yep.
But I didn't do any work intentionally to inculcate those habits,
Hmm.
right? Like working out was the first thing. It should have been studying, but that didn't happen. Surprise.
What are you gonna
Um,
do?
Yeah, it's like I love how my parents could be because I'm saying, oh, working out was the first habit, but I started working out like halfway through university, and they're like, what were you doing the first 2.5 years? Were you not studying at all? Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah.
uh,
So comedy will be the second habit, but I didn't like again, like I didn't work at it. I just like it was more just like, why doesn't this joke work? I need to try it again tonight, and you kind of just
yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I think insofar as like the open mic stuff is concerned, that's that's the same thing for me. I mean, I kind of just in my mind, I just more or less set a number that I should be hitting more or less each week. So I started at 9, and then I was like, okay,
hmm
well maybe like move it up to like 15, and so with that sort of
yeah.
magic number, you hone in on it.
Yeah, and right now I think more of my work is about learning the structure of writing than it is about the writing itself. I was
Hmm.
writing a lot about a lot before the pandemic,
Hmm.
but as soon as the pandemic hit, the problem is you need to, in order to write about something new, a lot of the times something new has to happen to you,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
you need to be in, not just because like you need the new experience, but the new experience puts you in a different mindset that makes you look at your previous experiences with a different lens.
Yes.
and
Man
and
never
then
steps in
like
the same
something
river
that
twice, kind of thing.
yeah, and something that wasn't funny to you before is now funny to you because of the way you're looking at it, but the way you're looking at it is predicated upon what just happened.
That's a very good point. That is a very, very good point. Yeah, I mean, I kind of knew that maybe a little bit, but I like the way that you put that.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, even
but if
recently
nothing new is happening to you, then you don't have that ability to like look at previous things with that new
with that fresh
experience in
lens.
mind.
Yeah.
And so my writing about things has slowed down. What has sped up is like, even though I'm doing way more open mics, what I'm doing is like whittling stuff down that I've already written, learning new analogies, like thinking about what I've already written like differently. So I'm writing, but I'm not writing new stuff. I'm
Mm,
writing more stuff about old stuff. So I'm
I
kind of
gotcha.
pigeonholed in that way. I think I'll start writing again about like for better or for worse, the things that I was thinking about when the pandemic started were like things like the election and government and how a lot of those things are like we place our faith in those systems without understanding them or whether they're broken or not. And that's continued for the most part throughout, right? It's like the pandemic kind of just hit pause on like new experiences. So whatever I was writing when it started is what I'm writing about when it's ending, except I'm also writing pandemic jokes.
That's a good point. That's that's interesting because up until the pandemic, I really didn't have, I mean, I had things that I had written here and there, um, but almost all of my writing, like I would say at this point, proportionally, 95% of everything I've ever written um, is pandemic writing. It's not about the pandemic, but it is in the pandemic. Um, and
Yeah.
that idea of writing about old stuff right now. I mean, I have a whole stack full of ideas that I should whittle down, and sort of make a concentrated attempt
Yeah.
to get
It's I'm still writing a couple new things, but it's very scarce, right? Like the mansplaining thing is new, but it's
Mhm.
because that happened
Yeah.
somehow on Zoom, right?
Yeah, that's one thing I admire about you is I can almost kind of hear the grandfather clock ticking whenever you're having these conversations with other comics, because I mean we all rib on each other, we all riff, um, but I almost like hear the tape recorder like spinning in your head, pulling it in, so that it can come out a little bit cleaner the next
Yeah.
time.
I'm
That's
a
something I
very
don't do at
petty
all.
human being.
Oh yeah, no, that's also I think I think that's what it is. Is you're just very vindictive, so you just want to win the argument that you're having
Yeah, like
in another mic to the
yeah, like
audience.
I was on Flapper's mic yesterday night, and somebody said something. I was cooking, and they're like, "What are you cooking?" I was like, "This is what I'm cooking," and then they're like, "That sounds great." And I said, I'm not a good cook or anything. I got like a HelloFresh subscription, and I just do what they tell me to do." And they're like, "I never said you were a good cook. I just said it looks good, or
Oh my
something, right?"
god.
Like they were trying to be funny,
Mm.
and I knew that, and I didn't feel bad, but I was like, "Oh, it's like that, is it?" And they're just playing around, right? And
Uh-huh.
they went, "Oh, I hear the comeback," and I'm like, "No, no, I'm not that fast at comebacks. The comeback's gonna happen 4 weeks from now. Like I'm gonna be worrying about this for like a couple days, and I'll be like, how do I turn that into a joke? Like the joke is your punishment and my revenge, right?
Makes a lot of sense.
Like I am the Taylor Swift of comedians. Is it? So,
Oh, that's going in
but
the
that
quote
really
book.
is but that really is kind of how that works. Is you find something you don't like or something that's worth complaining about, and then you kind of like your brain goes whirs for like a week and a half or two, and then you come out like every once in a like roasting people in person, like one on one. There's nothing there to complain about. It's just pure fun,
Mhm.
right? Which is what I like about it. Like I'm not actually being vindictive. If like that day on Anarchy, right? Um, when I
Yes,
like roasted people's jokes, that was in the moment. I was drunk, but well, I
it's
was
true.
tipsy, but there was nothing about that moment that was even remotely prepared. I had not thought about it before I started, like until like 5 minutes before my set, when I was like, I'm gonna roast these people's jokes.
Mhm.
Uh, but but that's different from like if you had said something and like that stuff comes back, right?
Mm.
If like I think I was on fuck, is it Dollar Mike with Noah? You've been there?
Yeah, no, I think I was on there with you at one point.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I don't know if this is the day you were there, but I was talking about I identify as alone.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, and Josh made a joke afterwards. I think I said, "Well, I sound like somebody that's lonely or something." He said, "Well, you sound like a whiny little cunt to me," right, or something like that. And it was just like a shock value thing, and people laughed, right? But I hated that it was a shock value thing.
Ah, you thought it was cheap.
Yeah, as like get your laughs, but not like this.
Mhm. Get
but
your laughs, but not
get
like
them
this.
wherever you're gonna get them, actually.
Yeah.
But like I did notice, right?
Mhm.
And but so cut to like a week after that, or like 2 weeks after that, and we were on Tara's mic, Futon of Youth.
Yes. I'm
And
actually
by
going to
the way,
that
this
later tonight. Yeah.
yeah, I'm fucking marketing every mic I like right now.
No, perfect. That's I encourage it.
Yeah, so shout out to Tara. She has great mics. But so Tara introduced Josh, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was supposed to go after Josh in this one. And Tara introduced Josh like in a little bit of a weird way. Like she kind of like tried to make fun of him while bringing him up, but like failed a little bit. She either went too far or not far enough. So
Mm-hmm.
like it didn't hit, and then people started wondering if she meant it or not, right? So when Josh came up on screen, Josh had this face about him, like I'm shocked. Like, what did you just say about me, right? But it was just like a pretend face, like he didn't care,
Mm-hmm.
right? But he's like, how could you say that word for joke purposes, right? And then I
Mm-hmm.
went up right after him, and I was like, you have no right to be shocked by anything Tara said. You said to me that I am a whiny little cunt on a mic, and she did not use any of those words. If you can say that, then you can hear, and you should hear every other insult, right?
And you should hear. That's a good point. That's a good point. And okay, now I think what I'm honing in on is you just have a much better memory than I do. I think I think that's what it comes
Yeah.
down to.
But again, petty.
Yeah, you have a really good patty memory. That's basically what it is.
Like that's
Uh,
like that hypocrite joke has been like a year in the making. I truly do hate hypocrisy, and it's the thing I notice most is when people go, that's stupid, and then they do the stupid thing 5 minutes later in a
mhm.
different way,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So like and I have to find a different pattern to explain that to people, because if I just say I hate hypocrisy the whole time, people are like, this is his thing, he's boring, right?
Yeah.
So because otherwise the title of my special would be I hate hypocrisy, uh, which nobody's gonna watch, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that like but that was like that's the common thing with Josh, with like the I disagree with this joke thing, right? It's just people like saying something, turning around and doing it. Like I disagree
Mhm.
with this joke, and then they go, you can't disagree with something that's not an opinion. You just did,
Yeah, you
right?
absolutely can.
Or yeah, or you're a whiny little cunt. How could you say that about me? You just did. Like it's that
Hmm.
like exists in every conversation.
Hmm. Hmm. So it's interesting. I mean, uh, it's curious to me that a lot of your comedy seems to have like well, okay, obviously all comedy is personal, so that's not really a profound thing, but it seems like you have like a handful. It almost kind of reminds me of like late Carlin, where he has like four things that he hates about either humans, humanity, things humans do, like the four and very
Yeah.
specific things, like very specific grievances, and those are kind of the railroads you go down, and you, I mean, and you go down each of them very reliably and consistently, which obviously is because you believe it, like it's your opinion. Um, but
Right.
it's interesting to me because like for me, I think about like, okay, what are my railroads? Spider-Man is one of them. So I'm so fascinated by, you're just, I mean, you hold on for dear life to like each of
Yeah.
these zip lines. It's
I hold on
incredible.
forever. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's actually, I mean, it's admirable.
And
I don't have to
tiring,
hold
but
on because Spider-Man has sticky hands, but uh, gosh,
yeah. But I'll tell you though, like holding on is exhausting. Like don't do
oh yeah,
it.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. I mean, it's just being that locked in all the time. Um, but it gets. I mean,
Yeah,
it
like
definitely.
my
Yeah.
that was funny to me is my best friend. I had complained about her to her about the whole like pandemic situation of like people being you should be responsible, and I'm like, thank you. I have learned something new today.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Completely
and
useless. Yeah.
uh, and I told her like people are so stupid. Like, why do they think this is news? And she's
Mhm.
like, why do you keep like? She said, are you sure it's worth your effort complaining about this?
Good
Right?
question.
And I got like I didn't get mad, but I got mad. Like I didn't say anything, but I was like, this is upsetting to me that you don't know that this is something I am not one of those people that chooses to get mad at things. I make fun of those people.
That's true.
I get
Yeah.
mad when I get mad, and and then I
Yeah.
stop getting mad when I realize I was mad. But I do get mad.
Hmm.
So, but I couldn't say anything. So what I did was I turned it into a 3 minute joke, and then I centered the joke.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Gosh, that's, you know what? I like that. I like that. It's a long-winded. I think I wrote down in my journal once, comedy is your one opportunity to win every argument you get into.
Yeah, yeah,
Because you can, you're playing both sides, or at least you're playing your side preferentially.
yeah.
So
Well, it's great because you can just go in your head. It would be cool if that happened. You know what? Just did. Like that's
yeah,
the
yeah. That, I mean, you're just stitching your reality on stage however you
yeah.
want.
Like I wrote a story recently about like it was kind of inspired by this girl I know or used to know, still
Hmm.
know, but suffice it to say that the story had way more than just that. Like that's how it started, right?
Hmm.
And the girl kind of I wove her into the story because the story is based on the girl, but what the point the story is trying to make is not based on the girl at all,
Hmm.
right? And I sent that to my best friend, right?
Hmm.
And and she said, "This reads like a letter to a girl you're still in love with."
And was it a letter
And
to a girl that you're still in love with?
no, and I was very proud of that because because like I thought two things at once. I thought a like she seems like she's like my best friend. Like it seems like it's somehow very important to her that I be in love with this girl I'm writing about. Like
Hmm.
right, and it's like I don't know why that is, and like I don't, but it felt like she thought that was a criticism,
Ah,
that
okay.
that when you write this your like supposed love is coming across and you should like hide that or like take it away. And I was like, 70% of the story is made up.
That's
The
true.
only part of the story that was true is how I met the girl. That's it,
Mm,
right? The rest
hmm.
of the story, like takes personal turns, but the personal turns are invented. Like it didn't,
Hmm.
like I have a whole part where I go, she visited me in Canada, and then this horrible thing happened that turned into a great thing. She's never visited me in Canada. So, um, so like I almost took it as a compliment, or as like if this story seems personal enough to you that you believe it,
That's a good
and you
story.
can make conclusions. Oh, he must be in love with this girl, and there's this like wishful thinking quality to a story I made up. I am fine with those implications because one like 70% chance they're not true because I made it
Hmm.
up, and like it's
And that's a good
like it's
story. That's a very
yeah
good story that you wrote.
it's a compliment.
Hmm.
uh, so I don't mind the implications.
Hmm. That's interesting. I think, yeah, I mean, so obviously stitching that back to comedy. I wonder if, it's also a compliment to for the audience to for a moment hate you about something that you just created. If you can convincing and like hate you in like a meaningful way, the kind of the way that you just said, where it's like I can hate you and then draw conclusions about that hatred. Because if you go up there and you just like scream the n-word, nobody needs to draw any conclusions. They just hate you outright. But if you can go
Hmm.
on stage and kind of create this sort of tapestry where it's like people can ask questions about why they don't like you or they dislike you or they hate you, um, that's maybe that's a good set. Maybe that's a good bit. And then hate, it doesn't have to be hate. It can be love. It can be sympathize, whatever. Um, so I don't know. I see a parallel um, between that and that in comedy.
Yeah, could be. I'm not quite convinced as of yet, but
Mm,
I
I see.
don't know. Uh, the hate thing is common. Like I don't know who said this to me, but it's like how people say, uh, like I know where it is from. Like the dude that runs Flappers, they send like email newsletters,
Hmm.
and they have like articles about comedy in them that somebody at Flappers has written. And one of the
Hmm.
articles was improv is yes and comedy is but why, or something like that.
Ah.
Like improv is all about I agree with you and let's go on,
Hmm.
and comedy is all about no, I disagree with this, like I want to complain about this. Like
Or
comedy is
stop,
very
explain that
complain.
for a second. Like
Yeah,
what's going on there?
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I think it's like improv is skipping stones and stand up is flipping them over and looking at the worms underneath. Um,
Hmm.
if only because improvisers always seem like they're having way more fun than stand up
Do you
comedians.
always do you get do you find it jarring when people call you an improv comic?
Oh, well, ugh, okay. When you say that, do you mean a comic who also does improv or a comic who like has an improvised style? I'm curious what you mean by improv comic.
Well, I've just seen people call you it in like
Oh,
conversation.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's well, I don't really. I mean, I guess I do get a little frustrated because I do improv, or did, um, and it. I think it's mainly just a dig at my personality. I just seem agreeable or whatever. But I don't even think I'm that agreeable. Like I don't really think I'm that, you know what I mean? Like we're doing this right now and I think this is cordial, but I don't think I am in general like a super like, yeah, absolutely. Because there is like this like peppiness to improvisers that is kind of, it's kind of diabetic. Um,
Right.
and I hope I don't
Well,
have that.
I also think people, I don't know. Some people get more agreeable one on one. Other people find much more freedom in disagreeing one on one.
Huh.
Like
Oh
it
yeah. Okay.
like there are some, I think across the board for me, I just like if I disagree, I'll like if we're one on one, I'll for sure disagree if I
Hmm.
disagree.
Hmm.
Right. Uh, every once in a while there's a group of people where I feel like I'm the only one that has an opinion, and then I have to think about if it's worth it.
Yeah, that's sort of a that definitely is sometimes a situation you get into when you have a bunch of improvisers, is that you can very much tell that like nobody wants to commit to any strong stance because nobody wants to borrow a term, negate each other. And so there's this like super agreement that happens, or at least like an absolute lack of disagreement, where the conversation doesn't really
Mm,
go anywhere. And it's interesting that you say people feel either more disagreeable or more agreeable on one-on-one. I think honestly, I feel like I act the same, in one-on-one as I might do in like an open mic. I don't have anything to hide from anybody. I'm not, I don't have an image that I'm vested in. Uh,
right. But like this is the like okay, so I was thinking about this. This is not a joke yet, or might not even be at all. But like when I was thinking about that little joke of like I'm a hypocrite as a self-care habit, and my like guilt is basically I'm a feminist, but I mansplain every once in a while by mistake, right?
mhm.
I thought, well, there are other things like that are like I can admit that there's like I'm a byproduct of my society, so there's probably sexism in me. I'm like smart enough to know that,
Mhm.
right? So like the best you can like I am part of a corrupt system, which
Mhm.
means like I cannot uh, like the best thing I can do is try to find ways in which I am complicit and negate them, right? But at no point do I have the option of claiming that I am not part of the system.
That's true.
So
You're on the grid.
yeah, so like one of the other things like that kind of like this is like a reverse like concern that kind of makes it sexist is like if that one comic that had said I disagree with you, right, on this joke, right, because it was not actually an audience member, it was a comedian during a feedback mic,
Yes.
right? If that comedian that said I disagree with that joke had been a man, right, I would have probably roasted them for a good 3 minutes,
Mhm.
right? And they'd have just been like, "Are you stupid?" Like, because they also said, "Oh, the other comics that are laughing just got carried through in the flow." I'm like, you insulted an entire audience members, like an entire audience, just to make a point.
Yeah.
Like, you think comedians are stupid? They're just gonna laugh. Is that ever something that happens? Usually, comedians listen to a joke and go, "That's a joke,"
Yeah.
and then they don't
Acknowledged.
laugh,
Yeah.
right? Because that's who they are. So the idea that you could just carry them through with some like comedic energy is a complete farce, right? You
Mm.
just try to insult some other people. It's like, what are you trying to do, right?
Mhm.
You have this much power at a feedback mic, like
Mhm.
this much, like thunder that you get to use, and that like small amount of power has corrupted you. Like I would not trust you to be president. Is the right?
Is the point. Yeah, is the
But I
rub.
didn't say any of that.
Mhm.
Why? Because I cannot be that aggressive uh, to a
Yeah, that would have
woman
come out. Oh gosh, if you
on
had
a
done that. Been,
right? Like, but if it's a dude and I'm doing that roasting, it's probably gonna be all right,
mhm.
right? But it's like, but the reason that isn't because like they're wrong or that I am sexist. It's just there's a general energy of like you read the room and you go like, how far can I go before it this feels like I'm being condescending or it feels like I'm like being mean spirited, right? And
Mhm.
that's not what I want,
Mhm.
right? But but if I can read the room, I can admit to myself that the room would have reacted differently if it was a dude that had made that same complaint,
That's a good point. That's a good point.
right?
And that kind of calculation seems to be something you're always doing and very good at.
Yeah, but so it's like, well, is that sexist? I don't know, but it is like a difference in treatment based on like it's not based on your gender, it's based on the world we live in. Like it's not
Yeah.
specifically because you're a woman, but it's because like it might be easier for people to conclude that I'm like roasting you because you're a woman than if you're a dude, that like little triggering thought would not happen.
Yes. And I think it, you have to be able to make a distinction between I'm actually attacking your identity versus I am playing by the rules of the social expectations of this
Yeah.
particular situation that we all tacitly agree to.
And all right, and this is like genuine complaint, right? I would like an understanding that it is possible for me to hate you and not all women,
Yeah.
right? I can dislike what you said severely and I can say so. It doesn't mean that you can't have a life or that I have control over you
Yeah.
or that I hate all women. It's hey what you said.
Well, in a way, it's almost it's almost a little air. God, I hope this doesn't become like the interview where we like dismantle feminism.
Why do we
Oh
always
God.
end up talking about this shit? It's gonna get taken off
Oh,
Facebook again.
women are kind of weird, right? Huh? Dating's strange. No, okay. So I mean, it's one of those things, and this actually isn't specific to women. This is just any
uh,
marginalized group that gets the short end of the stick in any situation. Like okay, for instance, when somebody says something quasi offensive about black or Hispanic people, and then they kind of like
uh-huh.
do this eye to eye, and they're like, Zevon, what do you like? Oh, is that okay? And it's like I can tell they're not talking to Zevon. They're talking to Zevon, the portal
Yeah.
into that you like I'm a
Yeah.
window for them, and they're just like,
Yeah,
"You
you're
good?"
like now a representative for your entire
Yeah.
community.
And the thing is like, okay, so that's shitty, but actually I would argue that it's still shitty for me to act as a representative. So like if
Hmm.
I draw the conclusion what you said on and by the power vested in me is offensive to the entire community. And it's like, how the fuck do you know? Like, what? I can't even imagine saying anything on behalf of anybody. I can barely say shit on behalf of myself, much less millions and billions and, just
Yeah.
like hundreds of thousands of people in my nearby. No, no, I can't do that at all. And really, nobody can. So, I mean,
Well, yeah, there's a you can also, like of course you're going to make generalizations. And of course you're going to have to at some point be able to say I think in general this is mean-spirited to this community. You
mhm,
probably don't need to be like this community is going to be up in arms or offended. Like you don't know that,
mhm,
right? But like I can say what you just said seems to indicate that you are racist,
mhm,
right? It seems to me that somewhere in your head you think this because you think people that look like me are inferior, right? I can
mhm,
draw those conclusions easily, right?
mhm,
But that's me, right? That's not to say everybody that looks like me is going to have the same conclusion.
mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
that yeah,
yeah. It's all about identifying, is this like a personal conclusion that I came to about a group, or is this the group's group conclusion about, well, that same
yeah.
group or things that happen?
It's all majority wins,
Hmm.
right? Because I imagine any like I imagine Candace Owens is an exception,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Like big fat exception. Like to women, to black people.
Yeah,
I imagine she's a big fat exception,
she is
right?
ringing
But
the bell curve on the long end.
Yeah, but that's an extreme, right? On average, though, I would imagine that what do you think? Black people don't disagree with each other? That's
Yeah.
stupid, right? So at any point, like if you like say something with the entire authority of your community behind you, I do question if you know that there are people in your own community that would disagree with you,
Oh yeah.
right?
Oh
So
yeah.
we can't have these arguments on behalf of all of the people that we have known. Like we
Yeah.
have to have these arguments based on how we think and why we think.
Yeah. On the individual level.
Yeah, like that's the only like I understand that the desire is to like impact society and influence people to think a certain way that you think is better for
Hmm.
everybody, right? I understand the nobility of the thought, but the way to convince people is not usually to force them or push them into, well, maybe push and prod, but not force them into believing something,
Hmm.
right? Because then they'll say what you want them to say and think the other thing anyway.
Yeah. Or they won't even say what you want them to say, and so you haven't
Yeah,
won anything from them.
like changing people's minds takes a much longer time than people would usually realize, and most of the time you can't do it on Twitter.
No, you can't. And I think, I mean, not to make any like big, broad, I am 14 and this is deep conclusions, but I will. I'm gonna, I'm gonna say something to that effect,
You're
which is,
14?
no, I'm not 14. Oh my, what if? Like, I'm just like not aging well.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm
I'm,
I'm trying to convince a set like 14-year-old about sexism. That shit.
that's not gonna happen. No, no, no. I'm 22. And you're 24,
Four.
right? That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. But where was I? I was gonna say, oh yeah. I mean, that's what I feel is like the overwhelming power of comedy is that I can slip idea. It's like Inception in real time, where I can slip ideas past your psyche because I gave you a seizure for a moment, and I'm able to, that kind of your brain opens up a little bit because it's like that's what laughter is it's like a miniature seizure,
Yeah.
and so when that's happening, your brain is so full of neurochemicals or whatever, anything can slip through for just that second, and so maybe you can't change someone's mind by a Twitter post or, some compelling ranting on a street corner. But if you do that compelling ranting on a stage on Friday nights where everyone is drunk, then you might be able to do something.
Maybe. Yeah. But I think
Maybe you think I'm
there's this
overestimating
weird
the
thing.
power of.
Well, no, no. And I was thinking more like there's this thing that people are very capable of doing, which is there are racist people that have black friends,
Yeah.
right? And you go, how is that possible? It's because, well, bias works in insidious ways, right? That person will find a way to dissociate that black person's blackness and just be like, oh, my friend is a great dude. It's got nothing to do with him being black,
Hmm.
right? But I am still racist. And
Hmm.
that's how that happens. And
Hmm.
but it's like, what am I trying to say here? Like it's like even if you have people in your life that you like and respect that are exceptions to your biases, sometimes you still don't even question your biases, right?
Yeah.
So the idea, I'm not saying comedy won't change that. I'm not saying comedy doesn't poke and prod at it. It does. But the idea that I am up there thinking just me talking for 5 minutes will change somebody's mind,
That's
I
pretty
think,
wild. That is a wild assertion. Yeah.
yeah, I might at best, if there's a group of people laughing, be able to like spark some laughter from one of them that turns into a conversation between all of them later. And then those people will change that person's mind. Right.
Yes. That's a good
Like
point.
that's all art is capable of doing, is starting conversations.
It can't
That
have them
I'm
for you.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. I can spark controversy and conversation, and it's like maybe inspire people to talk about a topic that they haven't talked about. But I can't be responsible for changing their minds.
That's a good point. And ultimately, the only person responsible for even wanting to change their minds or changing their minds in the first place is that person. So I mean, it always comes down to an individual choice,
Yeah.
whether or not we want it to. Um,
Yeah.
that's curious though. I mean, this does make me think more deeply about, the jokes that I've been telling, and I mean the types of things I want to talk about. And that is, I mean, like that's, anytime I book anybody for this show, and not really just that, but like anytime I like grab onto, different comedians and, shake their brain for any loose change, it's because I in some way see something that either I don't see in myself or I do see in myself, but not nearly to that level. And so something about you that I really like is this unerring sort of, well, first of all, you have, these really strong opinions that you're just running down, but then also you're kind of, you recognize, at least to some extent, your ability to start different thoughts and start different conversations. And I mean, I'm not saying you're like, you think of yourself as like this social hero, who's running around like dropping truth bombs, fucking the proverbial Vietnam of bigotry that you are carpet bombing. But I do see, that glint of awareness. This is something bigger. We're talking about something a little bit bigger than the both of us as people, but it's still conceptual. And that's one thing I really admire. That's something I think I can, you know, pull into my own practice, hopefully.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. What are we doing on time? I think we're at a little over an hour. Yeah, 5 minutes over an hour. Um, I think this is a good stopping point. Um, I don't know if you still want to talk, we can. But otherwise, I have to make it into two videos, and then it's just.
Nah,
But
it's all good, man. We had a good conversation. I think we came to like a natural little pocket of air.
that's good. Yeah. And so, is there anything that you want to plug before we get out of here?
Who's gonna listen to it?
Fair enough. Well, this is, I mean, the video is coming out, so, and I know you
I'm
want.
joking. I'm joking.
Fair enough.
Go on. What were you
Did,
saying?
well, did you have anything? Did you want? I mean, is there anything?
Well, I'm gonna say come watch Aesthetic. It's gonna be I think my like second or third 15 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
I'll probably put some new stuff in there, like work on a couple old structures that I've wanted to put together, but I've always had to do 3 minutes at a time.
Hmm.
I think most of your audience, for the most part, has not. I don't think I've ever done the same joke twice on Aesthetic.
No, no.
Um,
And it's been a while
my
since you've been
favorite,
on.
yeah, my favorite audience member is Emily. She's always laughing.
Oh, Emma. Yeah, yeah, yeah. She's a good one. Yeah, we've got a good crop, and because this is a fundraising mic, I'm really pushing all of my Texan friends to, or Texas family, Texas friends to come. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this one gets a big turnout. Um, but yeah, come see Show Aesthetic this Tuesday at 9 Eastern Standard. Um, Ashwyn will be there along with a couple of other comedians, Henry Pullen, Ashley Gutermuth, and Winston Hodges, all really well-known good names in the Zoom sphere that we occupy.
Yes,
Um,
I will look less like a lion's baby that was just given birth to.
are you gonna wear the I think you usually wear the you've got like a sweater you wear. It's kind of like maybe manila or like orangey, or maybe I'm totally
It
making this up.
depends on I like Savion had one good point, which is you can't ever listen to comedy from someone that looks better than you. It's not
That is very true.
don't happen. So like whatever I'm wearing, I'll put on like a jacket or something because you like I don't like I'm comfortable today. Like as an interview says, like I'll just wear what I usually wear. But whatever I'm wearing, I'll put a shirt on or something. Like you won't see skin. That's the
Good. No, that makes perfect sense. I have like a couple of outfits that I wear,
yeah.
but I don't, well, I don't think I could look substantially better than
Yeah.
everyone else. I could just look
Hoodies.
more yeah, it's mostly hoodies. I haven't whipped out the NASA hoodie in a while. Maybe we
Yeah.
need to
Once
reprise that.
once people know me and I have like a 10,000 people following, then I can be like, I also like clothes.
Oh
And like
God.
wear like sweaters and like actual stuff that I like wearing. It still won't be anything like this, but
Hmm.
it wouldn't be a hoodie.
Ah, yeah. Well, all right, Ashwin, this was a very good conversation. I'll send you the recording as always, and the actual full recording will be on YouTube in probably like 45 minutes or so.
Sure.
Um, all right. Well,
Mr.
peace in the Middle
Vasquez, it's
East.
been a pleasure.
Sing, same to you. See ya.